Good evening, actually, to everybody. We would like to start the less scientific and perhaps more entertaining part of this day. It's called Personal Remarks by Friends and Family, and that's actually what we envisioned it to be, and that's probably what's going to happen. So when I discussed this part with NOGA, he told me that usually in parts of this sort, all kinds of people, usually very dear to the person who is being celebrated, tell all kinds of stories, niceties and pleasantries, and quite frequently, quite many of them are not exactly what happened in reality. So it will be up to you to judge whether what we're about to hear is fully true, partially true, not true at all. You can verify it with NOGA. So we'll hear all kinds of stories and all of NOGA. Actually, I myself was quite fortunate to spend quite some time with NOGA, and I'm very lucky for this, and I'm very grateful to him. And obviously, because of this, I have a fairly good set of stories about NOGA myself, and quite a few of them were collected during our common lunches together, so my conservative estimate for the number of joint lunches runs to something like 2,000, I would say. And which means that if you know NOGA, that I witnessed NOGA consuming his favorite meal 1,900 times, and you can guess what his favorite meal is. It's obviously quarter chicken, that's what he likes. He's a well-known gourmet connoisseur. And presumably in the remaining 100 cases, the kitchen just refused to provide it to NOGA, and he had to settle for something different. So we've asked several friends and colleagues of NOGA who are present here to deliver short and I hope entertaining speeches about NOGA, and I believe the family will also want to say something. And in some sense, we'll go according to the chronological order, or at least this was the original plan, which means by the order of the first acquaintance in NOGA, but we will make one exception, because the ladies here asked me to go first, and I didn't have enough courage to refuse, and I'm actually happy to let them go first. There are some persons in this audience who know NOGA starting from today. Some of them know him for years, some of them know him for decades. I know of at least one person here who knows NOGA for well above 50 years. And since we are mathematicians and we know some math, NOGA is turning 60 now. You can guess when exactly it happened. And the only solution of this puzzle is it must be in a kindergarten. And indeed, this person is none other but Nurit Alon. So they started spending some time together in a kindergarten. Okay. Now, let me invite the daughters of NOGA to give a speech or a presentation. Maybe one thing of the daughters are Nili, Natalie, and Narkis, and some of you may have heard even actually today the name of Nili, so she's quite famous for writing several really beautiful papers together. I kind of suspect that she got some help from that in writing these papers, but maybe not. We can ask NOGA as well. And actually, she got a double major in math and computer science from our university. I would say like father, like daughter. And actually, I was fortunate to teach her a class, and the class was in nothing else but graph theory. And she was actually quite a good student, but now and then when she was chatting in the class, which didn't happen very frequently, I really carved a temptation to tell her that if she will keep misbehaving, I'll tell her to her death at lunch during quarter chicken, etc. But everything went smoothly. Okay, so Nili, Natalie, and Marquis.
Hi, my name is Narkis Alon, and I'm Noga Alon's youngest daughter. I will start with a short story. A few weeks ago, I met an entrepreneur I've been wanting to meet for a while. I heard a lot about him from a mutual friend, how he founded his virtual reality company, sold it to Facebook, and gave up on lots of money in the deal so he can keep living in Pardes Chana and not move to Palo Alto. In our meeting, he started telling me about himself and his background. He talked about his studies of math and physics, and I proudly mentioned, as I usually do, "Oh, so cool you studied math. My dad is a mathematician." Then he said, "What's his name?" And I said, "Noga Alon." Then he smiled and said, "I knew it." And I asked, "What did you know?" And he said, And the moment you said your father's a mathematician, Noga Alon's name came up to my mind, although I didn't even know your last name. I went to some of his classes, although I studied at Hebrew U just for fun. He's my favorite mathematician in Israel, and you are his daughter. I love you. This is not the first time a stranger expressed love, appreciation, and respect to me just for being my father's daughter. One might say that it should not make me happy because it's not appreciating who I am directly. But one is mistaken. Because just spending time with my father in the last 28 years of being alive made so much of the person I am, which actually makes me feel worthy of this love and appreciation. We do not choose parents, at least not while being here on planet Earth. And my sisters and I, being born to my mom and to my dad, understands it's like winning the lottery, but much, much better. Abba. When we look at you in admiration, we do not do so because of the numbers of papers you published, but because of your diligence. Not because of the number of your words are we so inspired, but because of your complete devotion into what you do. You are a role model, not because of the institutes you are part of or the keynote speeches you're invited to give, but because of your eagerness to share new knowledge, your commitment to deep research, and the trust you give your creative curiosity. Even if you stop publishing papers and stop winning awards, and you won't, you will always stay a living example of self-fulfillment for us, because it is not what you do, it's who you are, it's why you are, it's how you are. I often ask myself in the middle of an action, simple or complex, how would you do what I do now? I remember Mom told us once that the reason you are so thin, physically, is not because of your daily exercise, but because of the amount of time you are concentrated and present during the day. Sounds like an interesting diet. I could stand here for hours and give examples and thoughts about who you are and how you are, but instead we decided to put up a small show to try to share some of these things with the audience. So please bear with us, because this might be creative. I invited the stage really famous actors, which are accidentally my sisters, to please come.
Hi, Noga. Can I ask you something?
Sure.
I've been stuck on this thing. Can you take a look?
Yeah, I see the problem. Maybe if you move this here, move that there, use infinite dimensions. That's it. Well done.
Thanks, Noga. Oh my God, I've been stuck on this thing for years now. What am I going to do now?
Part 2, based on true stories. Are you Noga Alon's daughter?
Wow, he's brilliant. Are you like him? Are you also in math?
You know, his Erdish number is 1. Have you met Erdish?
Of course I met Erdis. He had dinner in our house as part of his vagabond journey across the world.
I had a class with your father. He's the best professor I ever had. He writes everything on the board.
There's this guy that got his PhD with your dad. I'm getting my PhD with that guy. Get it? I'm his granddaughter.
Noga Alon is not a real person. There are posters of him all over the campus and the Technion, and I personally have his picture as my desktop background.
So what's it like being his daughter?
I was at my best friend's wedding a couple months back, who just happens to be getting her PhD at math here at Tel Aviv University. And we were just standing and talking to a couple people when my friend says, Tom, you know, Natalie is Noga Alon's daughter. And Tom says, what? And then he stares at me for an hour in silence.
I was going to visit a friend. She works in this famous venture capital in Israel, and she wanted to introduce me to her boss. Her boss was in the middle of a meeting, so she knocked on the door, and she's like, hey, meet my best friend, Narkis. And he was like nodding politely and getting back to his meeting. And then she added, which is Noga Alon's daughter. And then the room had like froze. He looked at me, and I was like a bit embarrassed, so I closed the door, walked, Walking a few steps, suddenly I feel his hand touching my shoulder. I'm turning around and he's like, I studied with your father at 86. I love him. Let's do partnership between the industry and the academia. I have so many ideas how we can help our portfolio companies. And I'm like nodding with my head slowly, knowing that if I'll dare to introduce my dad with one other person that has nothing to do with math research, he will literally kill me.
During my first year at university, I went with my dad to check out the student day events. It was packed with people, and I noticed two students talking. I overheard one say to the other, "Did you already say hello to Noga Alon?" This surprised me. It was the first time I realized my dad was actually a rock star. It also motivated me with my studies because I also wanted to become a person that people really wanted to say hello to.
So what it's like being his daughter on a personal level?
He's been measuring our height up against the kitchen wall since we were tiny and documenting it in a file on his computer. When I was 14, he showed me a graph projecting my final height based on past calculations. He was exactly right.
Dad never, ever watches TV. He practically doesn't know how to turn it on. But once every 4 years, the Olympics is on. He comes home early from work, finds a way to turn on the TV, and then camps out in the living room for the rest of the summer. He watches every single category, and I remember very fun summers doing that with him.
Dad eats everything inside a pita.
Cheese in pita.
Salad in pita.
Meatballs in pita.
White rice with gravy in pita.
Pita in pita.
I really hated biology in the 7th grade, and I had this huge test coming up, and I remember the night before I was crying, and I was afraid I'm going to fail. And Dad tried to comfort me and kind of study with me, when suddenly the evening news came on the radio. And he said, "Quiet, let's listen to the news." And I was sobbing, and I said, "Why would I want to listen to the news? I have to study biology." So he said, "Let's see, maybe your biology teacher died." This is a great example of Dad's unique sense of humor and way of cheering us up. So, Abba, today, on the once-in-a-lifetime occasion when I'm exactly half your age, Neely is 0.566 your age, and Keith is 0.466 your age, we couldn't be happier to celebrate your 60th birthday. Here's to another 60. Yeah. Hi.
Thank you very much. So apparently Noga's diet is more extensive than quarter chicken. Sometimes it includes pita or pita in pita. Okay, now let's restore more or less the chronological order, and we go by the order of my perception, at least, of the acquaintance of those persons in Noga. So the first speaker met Noga in high school. It's actually the famous Reale High School in Haifa, which produced about as many, say, computer scientists as many prestigious universities in the West. So this person is Avi Vigdorsen.
So, do you hear me? I wonder if this is working. Okay. Well, talk about tough act to follow. And you also missed Gil's stand-up comedy for an hour, so. I just mainly have some pictures to show you and some stories that I think even maybe Nurit and the kids don't know. Let me see if this works. Hey, it works. So these are graduation pictures. We were in the same class in this high school. Actually, well, you know who is Noga and who is me there, right? It's actually, it's not so obvious. I once gave a talk for NOGA in a stock conference. He had a solo paper, and he couldn't come, and I presented his paper, and I gave his lecture. I said in the beginning, I'm Avi, I'm giving a talk for NOGA, he couldn't come, blah, blah, blah. And then after the lecture, tons of people came to ask me about combinatorial Nussdalen-Satz and Schoenel capacity. And what was lucky is the next day I gave another talk, which was a joint paper with NOGA and with Alex Lubotsky. And I stood up again and I said, well, I don't know whether I'm NOGA or Avi, but I'm certainly not Alex. Don't ask me about Ramanujan. You already heard that, so if it's not going to move, that will be a problem. Well, how do you... All right, so NOGA and Nurit were together in high school. You know, they were already together in elementary school. Here you can see NOGA and Nurit, and NOGA is obviously already thinking about the problem. Okay, for our next period together, actually I should say one thing about high school. We didn't talk much to each other, but we had the same source of inspiration there, which was our math teacher, Yosef Kaplan, and I can talk for an hour about what he gave us in helping us into mathematics, but I won't. Okay, so now I really hope to have pictures here. The next time we met, family-wise, when my wife Edna met NOGA because they went to do their bachelor's together in the Technion, but all my sources in the Technion failed to produce the graduation pictures or any pictures from the walls in the Technion. And so I have to just tell you that that's where they met. There's trying to discover some history there, turns out that there is some clash of memory between Nurit, NOGA's wife, and Edna, my wife, about what kind of car NOGA had at the Technion, because he used to drive her many... Mini Minor. I told you, you have to take it up with Edna. Edna said dashboard, but Nurit said NOGA never had a dashboard. So, no, I'm sure that you're right. But Edna, that's not her expertise, let's say. No, Nurit. So, we didn't meet there very often, even though the times overlapped. And I think the first time we really met as families and became friends was in 1995. I was a postdoc in IBM San Jose, and NOGA and Nurit came for the summer, and our oldest kids went together to daycare. And I think I've never seen such a amazing example of love at first sight. So I'm going to show you who. So I don't even know if Neely knows this story. So this is Neely, the famous actress from the previous act. And this is Eyal, our oldest. They were about 4. I mean, Neely is about a year older. They went to the same daycare together, and the first day, Eyal came back as a 4-year-old kid, even 3.5. And for the next 2 weeks, he went to sleep saying Neely, and then he would mumble Neely in his sleep. And I should tell you, she was tough. She was tough. So then, that clicked it. Between us, I just want to jump ahead way into almost the present, just to show you that you all know me like this. I can dress differently. So this is the only time in my life that I wear a suit and tie. For NOGA, it was not the only time. You can probably guess where it is. I'll give you a hint, first of all. Where The hint is you should, yeah, this is Nurit and Edna, so you should, do you know who's standing with her? The king. Yeah, this is the king of Norway, yes. This is the king and I picture. Nurit always finds her way to the lens. So yeah, this was in Andre's Abel Prize ceremony. We saw some earlier pictures from the same ceremony, Gil showed some. The place where we spent a huge amount of time together, you know, the fact that Peter Sarnak told you for a decade NOGA has been at the Institute is just because Peter has been at the Institute for a decade, but actually NOGA and I started going there in 1994 and have been there together sometimes as the same person on a joint position for several years. This has been, NOGA was there mostly by himself, except for some visits from the family in many occasions, and just was with us a lot. And there are tons of stories. I told Michael that he asked me to talk 10 minutes. I requested 12, but that I could talk. Yeah, I could talk for hours telling stories about NOGA, and he says, why don't you save something for his 70th birthday and his 80th birthday? And this is under the, I don't know where he takes this assumption that I'll remember any of this. I forgot. Anyway, so I'm saving you from a lot because I forgot a lot. I was thinking, yeah, I was thinking, that's my last slide, but it will have a few pictures. So I was thinking what stories to tell you about NOGA, and then I thought that, so this, everybody can read this? So this says, in Hebrew, אין אומרים שבחו של אדם בפניו, which means, in English, you should not praise a person in his presence. And who said this? This is a little acronym over there. What's? This is an acronym for standing for the sages of old who have, you know, their soul be blessed or something like that. And they said a lot of things. There are lots of Israeli or lots of Hebrew proverbs that they said. And, you know, many of them I like and others I completely ignore. This one is a very good example. I think, I mean, I learned over the years that the best time to tell praise of a person is when the person is alive. Is in front of you. This is... See? Also... in particular, when the person is present, is able to hear, is able to appreciate. This is, you know, it's first of all my philosophy with children. You should always praise them in there. And also some adults turned out like to hear praise, and the NOGA in particular. So I thought I would, it's very easy for me to do because I can just pull one of my recommendation letters for, which I keep writing for NOGA and just, you know, tell you what's in there. So, so I mean, you know, there are two parts to a recommendation letter. First, you talk about the personal, the scientific achievement of the person, and, you know, this takes like, you know, I'm going to say NOGA has so many papers, but then I go to his website and it turns out there are 20 since the, you know, one I wrote last month. And anyway, this conference is about this. I'm not going to bore you with the scientific achievements. And then you write about, you know, if the, you know, for the various prizes you have to describe the personality, or also for positions you have to describe the personality to warn people against various personal traits that you may not want to have. And so I started listing alphabetically some of the things. There are many more, and I, again, trying to save time. But I'll tell you some things I don't know if you all know. NOGA is avid reader. He reads all the time in English and Hebrew, tons of books, I don't know when. He watches all the movies that come out, but one thing we discovered is that we share the same taste in books and movies, namely we have none. We would, there's nothing low we wouldn't stoop to. I think that's Noga's, you know, he thinks that's probably the worst movie he saw, and he will see it again happily tomorrow. I mean, there are so many stories I can tell you. So not everything is funny. This is serious. This is really, well, first of all, you know, I had to show this picture. This is the same blonde kid you saw, but now at 7.5 kilometers, all the sun, and it gave us lots of sleepless nights. But what is really, you know, so amazing is I think Noga also had sleepless nights about his being on the mountains, and it was really moving to see Noga try to convince Eyal to just quit this habit and go down, never come back to the mountain. This was really, really moving for us. Where is this? Well, this you all know. Everybody here, young people, you need recommendation letters. Noga doesn't know you, he'll read your papers. I'll talk more about this later. Noga is always cold. He's cold not only at night, he's cold also during the day, and he's always with his jacket in his office, in the warm office. But I just have a picture of the 8 blankets. Oh. Is it? Yeah. In a vacuum pack, these 8 blankets we keep for him every time till he comes back again to the institute. We have a special closet for these 8 blankets he uses to cover himself at night. Well, I mean, I think this is totally obvious, but you don't understand how far it goes. You really, really don't. And I don't know even if Nurit knows this. So first of all, what is this a picture of? It's the bedroom of our little son, Yuval. And when he was young, when he was, I don't know, 8 or 10, he had these handlebars for pull-ups. And Noga would come to dinner. Each time he came to dinner, you see Yuval, this kid, and says, so how much can you do now? And Yuval would say, yeah, maybe 6. And Noga would run up the stairs and do 7. So there is no limit. Well, yeah, people talked about this. It's just amazing. You know, everybody can come up to Noga. Peter mentioned it and ask a question, and of course he'll get the full answer. Just this generosity with knowledge has enriched so many people, and I'm sure, you know, it's not just courses. Courses you have to teach, but way, way, way beyond this. I don't think that, yeah, I'm not going to tell a story. I just want to put it there so, you know, of course I told him this, but I hope this conference will help showing even more how lovable this guy is. This was mentioned, actually. So again, Noga's memory is legendary. It's completely legendary in the mathematics community. But again, you can't really understand how much he remembers. Now the Olympiads were mentioned. And you can ask him, how far did this guy jump? And he will tell you. You can ask him what was the best in the 1966 Olympics in a 200-meter dash or in the 100 swim, butterfly swim, and he will tell you. He just try it. I recommend it. Well, again, this was mentioned. I think, looking up to Noga as just a person to be your role model is universal. You know, we have a lot of arguments about this. He's too much of this mensch, and sometimes for his own good, but he can't help it. Well, it's sort of amazing. I think we are a good community. The math community is a really good community, and the ratio of achievement to ego is, far better than in any other academic discipline. But the scale of things, I think, even within the community, NOGA is amazing this way as well. Well, again, I have lots of stories, but I'll tell you one. I'm sure many people know this. NOGA always wears this shirt that, like Natalie wore here for him, which always has a pocket. And in this pocket, there is always a pen and a little notebook. And in the notebook, he writes everything. He writes if he flies across the Atlantic and watches 6 movies, you will see an entry for each one. Whatever he reads, there are more extreme things. Maybe I'll mention one. I hope he won't be mad. He writes how many people attend every talk. That not just that he gives, even that he's in the audience. So yeah. My last one. So this is not the right, it's not capturing enough this extreme service to the community that NOGA is doing, and it goes way beyond all the normal responsibilities of academics. I think we all sit on committees, we all write letters. It's just the number of, it's a good, I was thinking about this, it's a good estimate to what's the ratio between the number of papers you write and the number of letters you write. And I think it's just a guess, a rule of thumb, it's probably a factor of 5. So you can imagine how many recommendation letters NOGA wrote and how many professional careers he impacted by them. So all you young guys, there's a huge gratitude that we owe. So let me conclude with the way NOGA concludes every one of its recommendation letters. He has a statement that he always puts, which I would like to use now. I am happy to recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have an opportunity to confirm or deny some of these stories, maybe now or later. If not, we'll proceed to the next speaker. So the next speaker, I guess, met NOGA during his graduate years, and for quite many of us, the name of NOGA is firmly associated with one concept in mathematics, which is expander. And in fact, I heard many talks given in this very university, which started by the phrase, well, we are in Tel Aviv, and everyone here, including students, including undergraduate students, including those in humanities, knows the definition of an expander, and therefore, I don't need to define it. I'm not sure about humanities, but indeed, the notion of expanders is rooted here very strongly, and the other person who contributed to it is Professor Vitaly Milman, who is our next speaker.
Okay, he said who I am. I met NOGA in 81, 35 years ago. Some people here congratulate me. I ask, with what? Your students NOGA alone. It is not true de jure, but de facto, perhaps it is almost true, I would say. The only funny story I know about NOGA is the following. I know a lot of top mathematicians from their very young years. And about every one of them, I know a lot of funny stories when I come across together with them, actually. Besides NOGA, the only funny story I may say is that I don't know any funny story about him. He always was enormously solid, And even when he smiled, he was serious. So this is some kind of my understanding. Perhaps because of difference in age, he behaves such. But I was happy to hear a couple of stories now. Now, but what I can say, and I will say, it is actually, I was witness and participate in first stage of his development, of his career. And this perhaps just interesting to know. So in 81, this was 81, 82 academic year. We don't have winter in Israel, so you cannot, and we have in our brain does not have timing. Perhaps not many people know this. And so I cannot say it was before winter or after. So, but it was academic year, 81, 82. That time as I was interested in some combinatorial problem, I applied them to functional analysis. And we did something with another person, Karpovsky at that time. Later, Ordish said that this lemma was proved recently by Sowers, and later I myself learned that also by Shellock. So it's Sowers-Shellock lemma, which I used very well. And come to me my student that time, Chaim Wolfson, and said that he's in army together with another boy who want to tell me his proof of this lemma. Honestly, I did not want to listen another proof. But I like Chaim Wolfson and respect now very much, and I could not tell him not. So I said, bring him. So NOGA come to me. I should say from that moment I always was happy to hear him. So first he extremely clearly said his very nice proof, actually very clever proof. There exists very simple proof of this lemma, but it was the right proof, because difficulties, if exist in this, was many solutions. I will not tell mathematics. And he immediately put how to do this as unique solution in some small variation of problem, and then everything happened very, very nice and immediately. So first I like this. And second, I had another lemma, which I could not prove, similar to this lemma, and which I was need again for functional analysis. And I said to him, look, now you will know to prove next lemma. Please do it. Tomorrow, come to me. NOGA called next day and said, no, Vitaly, it does not work. No, then I have my method to work with students. So I said to him, no, you just think one more day tomorrow. Next day again NOGA said, no, it does not work. My reaction was, it means only that you need 2 days to work. 2 days from that moment, he called to me and said, I may come, I prove this lemma indeed method work. In the end, from this happened to be 2 papers, one by NOGA, because I wanted him to write method separately, and one out joint with this lemma and application to functional analysis. And this actually is one of 3 chapters of his PhD. By the way, at the same time, Misha Gromov sent me his preprint, Filling of Riemannian Manifolds. It was a couple of years before it was published. And in this was a combinatorial chapter. By the way, in this chapter was in particular construction, which later was called zigzag product, zigzag construction. I very much like this construction, talk to NOGA. But mostly I said to NOGA, what I like is possibility to consider PDE on graph. And I immediately suggested to do this using Laplacian on some graph, just to do concentration phenomenon of graph as we did with Gromov for Riemannian manifolds using lambda 1. And this we started, and the end of this was that paper which many times was mentioned, because this later led to all this development connected with what? I forgot this word, not extractor, expander. Yes, expander. I so many times heard that they try to forget. Okay. So, by the way, this reference 85, not completely correct. It was twice. It is the only paper which published 3 times. I don't have paper even 2 times published, perhaps 1 or 2. But this was 3 times. Because in the 83-84, it was published in Seminar Notes of Tel Aviv University, of Seminar Notes, GAFA Seminar Notes. And the same year, in 83-84, Functional Analysis Seminar of Paris 6 also published this. Difference between all papers, introduction. Introduction was emphasized different thing, but context mathematical was exactly the same. Okay, so, but after this, basically it was finished already by exchange of letters. It was not yet internet, can you believe in this? And by letters between NOGA in America and me. But that times finished PhD and starting to be thinking about postdoc. So I asked NOGA, where you assume to go into postdoc? He said, Waterloo. Actually, I'm sorry, perhaps I almost will humiliate someone, but I did not know this city in America. So, my counter question was, what is the best place for combinatorics today? And NOGA said, MIT. Then we will go to MIT, said. And he said, but I don't know people there. No, it was already not his problem. I wrote to a couple of people. I will not name them only because I did not ask permission, but I think they were happy with this. And NOGA went to MIT. By the way, perhaps, I'm not sure, it has also side influence on Gil Kalai. I did not know Gil Kalai at that times, but they were friends. And perhaps Gil Kalai also went to MIT because of NOGA. But NOGA, definitely I pushed him there. And to explain how it influenced, I will say the following numbers. When he left, he had 7 papers on his thesis, including submitted. When he returned 2 years later, he had 70 papers, I think all published. I don't know how for 2 years it's possible to do, but I don't know this terminology, but sometimes people run having very heavy thing on their leg. But you take this heavy thing, it was army, out, and then you even cannot imagine how quickly you may run. And this happened with NOGA. Okay, there exists another story, but perhaps I will wait next occasion, which will be very soon, when NOGA will be 68, retirement. In my age, time going so quickly that I just see this tomorrow. But, and this, another story is why NOGA come to work to Tel Aviv. This is interesting, psychological story, and how I decided to do it, that it works, would be next time. So, thank you.
Thank you very much to Vitaly. So let's proceed to the next speaker. So actually the next speaker is NOGA's academic brother, or actually even academic twin. They are like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. You can decide which is which. They both graduated under Micha Perles in '83, and they both went on to be postdocs at MIT, which was probably a great time for combinatorics. They even had births, but perhaps not at the same time, I guess, correct? Your birth was at different times than NOGA's. I mean, this birth. Yeah, birth. Yeah. Birth, not birth. Yeah. Okay, so the next speaker is Gil Kalai.
So I didn't know this will, where it will be, so, but maybe in my presentation there are some pictures, some people didn't see it. So I will just put the pictures.
Any help here?
I have it here. But, okay, maybe.
יש פה מישהו דרך לתפר את זה? אוקיי. זה?
I don't want to go over the lecture again.
For those of you who missed it, we'll repeat part of it again. And then there will be a quiz.
Oh, wait, I missed the picture. Sorry. you see it in this way? Oh, wait. So, I mean,
very nice. Oh, okay.
So I made first NOGA in 1971. So somehow I mainly prepared to my lecture, and then I lost my voice. So I'll be very brief. Essentially, I'll tell you only one anecdote. Or maybe I should say for the beginning, so NOGA is a wonderful scientist and a wonderful person, and he has a wonderful family. And we all, me and my wife Mazi and my children, we all love you very much, and we wish you all the best. One thing about birthday, there is something very strange in Hebrew about birthday, which is a little bit mathematical. When you have a 4 years old and you celebrate to him, you sing him a song, and the song say, "We wish you to survive to next year." No, really? No, I mean, it's true, right? And of course, next year you sing him again, "We wish you to survive to next year." So it's something like induction, where you say, "We wish you to survive until next year," and they say, all the way to 120. You know, if you survive the year after year. Anyway, so I just connection between mathematics. Essentially, so as I said in the lecture, I met NOGA first in 71. We actually didn't meet, but we were both participating in some Olympiad of mathematics. There was a Professor Gillis, I don't know if you remember, many of us were inspired by Gillis and Gilionot Mathematica, and there was this Olympiad, and Gillis came. He was sort of even shorter than me, and he came, he looked. We were supposed to start, and then he came back, and we didn't start, and he came back. He looked, didn't start. And then after about half an hour, he said, there should have been here a woman participant, but apparently she didn't come. And her brother is here, actually. It turns out, so NOGA is, now in Hebrew, many names are both for men and for women. I think NOGA is mainly used for women, although last I remember NOGA told me that there are 8 men in Israel called NOGA, right? And so I remember. I have a very good, like Avi said, I also have a very good memory, but only for the unimportant things. So I mean, somehow in this case we are. So we met in 71, but then we still didn't get, I think our master was in the same period. Again, we didn't meet so much because I think NOGA was in Tel Aviv. Micha Perles used to go to Tel Aviv from time to time. I remember once he was in the army and in the reserve duty, and he told the guys there, "Oh, yesterday I spent all night with NOGA." And you know, they immediately, one eyebrow was raised, and they were very surprised. And he said, no, NOGA is a man. And then the second eyebrow was, okay, what? So, and then I think we really became friends, or know each other at MIT. We spent a wonderful 2 years there. Various other people. So here is Neta and Lily from that time. Here is our families, except me that I took the picture. And here is NOGA with my son Chagai. So the only story I'll tell you is about my son. And here is Neta with Abigail, Michael, daughter, and also so Michael Ben-Or was there, and Meir Feder, and Udi the Shalit. He just phoned me there, asked me to be in some committee. I said no. I mean, somehow I'm not. Anyway, so the only story I wanted to tell, there was a little story I wanted to tell. That yesterday I was in a restaurant. I saw another very famous Israeli, Uri Geller, and I was the next table, and you know, to eat when Uri Geller is the next table, it's very dangerous. And then I thought, how can I find a way to connect this story with the blessing NOGA to birthday? And I didn't find any way. So I tell you one anecdote. It actually is not about NOGA, but about my son Chagai. So you see, this is Chagai. and now he's older. One day, Chagai went to reserve duty in the army. So I don't know if some of you are Israeli, you know what it is. So reserve duty in the army, or essentially you go there, you're supposed to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then nothing happened until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And actually when things happen, they are usually unpleasant. So you wish they wouldn't happen. So it's a little bit like hospital, going to the hospital, but not as bad. Although you don't have a trade-off. You know that you need to go to the hospital, say, oh, okay, I'll go to the army instead. This is. But anyway, so he went to the army, and okay, so from 8 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they were talking about politics and all those things. And then there was one guy there. Yeah, I should have quoted. I said that NOGA is a man who can do everything if he will. This was in the lecture. Anyway, there was a guy there, and he said, you know, what the solution to Israel problem is to have what Plato recommended, a philosopher king. You know this concept. I didn't know this concept, but anyway, so it's the king who is come from a philosopher, and he I don't know, he do his job based on. So, you know, my son was a bit skeptical and said, what do you mean philosopher king? But who will be this philosopher king? So I said, no problem, NOGA alone. So my son got very excited because he knew NOGA alone, you know, this is very good. So he's very excited. And he came to me, and I thought about it. It's not such a bad idea. I wanted to develop. So I should tell you one more thing about NOGA. You know, he said yes to be a chairman of the department, and he was for 2 years. And then when he finished, he liked to solve problems for long run. So and then he decided with the committee who will be the next chairman and after the next chairman for 5 generations of chairmen in the mathematics department, the computer science department, and so on. So I think it's a good idea that NOGA will be a king, at least for some time. I don't think he will have, I think he will deal with the problem in a very good way, move things to good track. And I thought also I should also recommend who will be the next king, right? So I don't know. I mean, there's 3 daughters. So NOGA have wonderful daughter, Nili, Natalie, and Narkis. And somehow I thought Narkis is more suitable to be a queen. I don't know. I hope you're not. But she is more of a public figure. I mean, is it okay? I mean, I don't. So I thought maybe after 2 years or 3 years, NOGA will settle all the important problems and bring peace and so on. And then he will step down, go back to prove theorems, and then Narkis can serve as a queen for maybe not only of Israel, the whole Middle East or whatever, for another half a century or so. So this is what I want to say. Happy birthday to NOGA and Nurit and the children and the children-in-law.
Thank you very much. So I don't exactly know when the next speaker met NOGA. I guess it was somewhere in the 80s, but his name has grown to be synonymous or even symbiotic to NOGA's name. And you hear this phrase, it's in the book of Alon and Spencer each and every day. And for those who are even tougher, they say, well, you know, this lazy student, he didn't even bother to read the first 9 chapters of Alon and Spencer before approaching me. And let me use this occasion to advertise the 4th edition of the book, which is about to be published soon, and maybe you can ask this gentleman to provide you with an autograph for the next edition. So the next speaker is the announced Joel Spencer.
All right. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I don't have, we'll have to keep, these pictures are very good, so we'll keep these up here. And I have known NOGA for a long, long time, I think, so I will just say the alpha and the omega, or omega -1, which was that we first met, and it was sometime in the 1980s, and it was somewhere in Europe. I think it was Bielefeld, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe Noga's memory. But what I really remember was I was with a wonderful man, Herb Wilf. Many of you may remember him. A dear, dear man. And we were just sitting at the conference, you know, and this young fellow kept making these incredible comments to just about every talk. And what I remember before I even met Noga was I forget who turned to whom, but one of Herb, so X and Y are Herb and I, in whichever order, I can't remember, and X turned to Y and said, you know, who is that young guy that's making all those comments? And Y said, well, yeah, I don't know who he is, but he's really good, you know. And indeed he was. So that was the alpha. So that was the first time that I knew Noga without actually having, but I think we met later at the conference. And then the Omega -1, we fast forward to last year, and we went to beautiful Hoboken, New Jersey, where we had a meeting for random structures and algorithms. And you know, it was like nothing had changed, that anything that came up, he had comments that were concise and that were important and that were interesting and that helped make the journal. Since this journal is one of my children, I'm so happy that Noga is there. And it was just, and all the time in between has been the same, that whenever he's there, you know, he always gives just the right comments to make things better. So I will be mathematical, and while some of this was already from Avi, I will just make a Venn diagram. That's good. Yeah, that would be good. Well, you work on it. Okay.
No, it's like always in Israel, there are so many people who are willing to give you an advice, and then there is none who knows to do it.
So I think there is a Venn diagram for mathematicians. And the first category, of course, is theorems. Hopefully, at least most of us are inside that category. And then there's a second category, which I will call, let me call it community. I think that's really the word, because I think we all belong to what did Marlon Brando call it, Cosa Nostra. You know, this is our thing, this mathematical community, and you know, when you're like a graduate student, you're coming into it, but somebody has to run it. Some people have to play a role in continuing the community. Somebody has to decide who are going to be the speakers at IMU. Somebody has to decide who will be the next 5 chairmen at Tel Aviv University. So I think this is really a sense for mathematicians of community, and then there's a third category, and I didn't know whether, but you've already used the Yiddish word. I don't know if it's also Hebrew, but I'll just use it and translate it. What's said in Yiddish. My parents didn't speak Yiddish, but everybody no doubt that NOGA has all three. So, which makes him a wonderful, wonderful person to know. I just want to add something that particularly what's good is working with NOGA on mathematics, working with him on a paper or on a book or on any project is just, he is the best person to work with besides having all these results. He's very good at how do you express things, and he always does it in a very nice way. And so it's just a real pleasure for me throughout the decades now to have been able to work and to continue to work with NOGA. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's proceed. So as we've heard already, NOGA has been very fortunate with students. I don't want to elaborate about this for obvious reasons, but let me give some head count. So he has graduated 20 students, correct? And several more in the makings. And I guess you know many names of those who graduated with NOGA. I'm not sure that you know who was the first. And the first NOGA's graduate is the next speaker for us, which is Yossi Azar.
Okay, so I was privileged to be the first student of NOGA, actually shared with Uri Zvik, which is here. So we both graduated in '89. And let me, as you all know, NOGA has 3 daughters. And actually in the last 10 years, he gained also 3 sons-in-law and 2 grandchildren. But as Michael said, he has actually 22 students and more than 100 descendants in the academic part, and I'm not giving any hints to the daughters. You don't need to catch up with them, but maybe just think about it. Also, I don't want to give dry facts, but let me just say that he has over 500 publications and 30,000 citations, but if you know the uncertainty principle, you cannot decide about the time and the number of papers that he has simultaneously. So it's impossible. And he probably was the youngest full professor in Israel at the age of 32, but this is not what I'm going to talk about, and list of prices. So as already mentioned several times here, NOGA has a very fast response time, and is very accurate and explains things very easily. So I remember as a student that if I read a paper and didn't understand anything, so NOGA in 10 minutes, he will just put all the details and explain to me on a paper very, very accurately. And this always reminds me the story of Mark Twain. So Mark Twain was asked to give a talk. And so they asked him, how long do you need to give the talk? So he said, it depends on the topic. If I know the topic very well, then I need 50 minutes. If I'm expert in the topic, so 20 minutes will be enough. And if I know nothing about the topic, I can speak as long as you want. So actually, NOGA fits into the 20 minutes talk. So if you can explain everything in 20 minutes, doesn't matter what. And in this line, I remember once I met Christos Papadimitriou. He's a famous computer scientist. And he brought a lot of things to computer science, complexity classes, algorithm game theory. So he heard me, that was a long time ago. He told me, oh, you're a student of NOGA. So I should tell you that once I flew with NOGA from, I think, from the East Coast to the West Coast. It was 5 hours flight. I was sitting near to him. And I learned in this flight more than I ever learned in my life, all over. That's a feeling when you are sitting and working on NOGA, and we all know about it. So it was mentioned several times, but one example of how NOGA is concise and clear and accurate is that he once showed me a 70 pages paper. I don't want to mention names because they might sit in the audience, so I don't want to mention names. And then he showed me that he actually replaced it with a one and a half page proof. And since he said that it's not good enough to write it in his name, so he wrote it with the name of A. Neely. But I don't want to give more details because it's and I remember as a student one typical case that I was with NOGA, and he told me, oh, next week I'm actually might be busy for a few days because I have a guest, Daniel Kleitman, so we might meet after a few days. So I meet him after a few days, and he tells me, I ask him how was how was the meeting? So how was the guest? And said, oh, yeah, fine, as usual, good. So I told him, so what did you work about? It nothing special, just about some convex sets. So I said, what about? So, there is this Ellis theorem, and I don't want to bear you with the details, but yeah, there was some conjecture from the 50s about some PQ property about these things, and I said, okay, so you worked about it, and anything special? No, nothing special. So what? We solved the conjecture. Yeah, so this reminds me the story of Alice and Bob, and if you're computer science, you know these are not random names. And Alice came and asked Bob, what is your mood today? He said, pretty sad, not very good, pretty sad. So she asked why. So he answered, 2 weeks ago, I invested $5 in the lottery and won $5 million. I said, wow, so why you're so sad? So because this is not the end of the story. Last week, I invested $6 and won $6 million. I said, wow, so not sure what's going on. So he said, but this week, I invested $7 and won nothing. So this is NOGA, actually. So he wins the jackpot every week. So every week he has some new result, and this is as usual. So if he doesn't have, yeah. Okay, let me also tell you how I saw NOGA write a referee report. So read the paper. You got a referee report, so you look at the paper and say, okay, first theorem. Oh, that's obvious, I know how to prove it. Okay, second theorem of the paper. Oh, I think they have an error here. Okay, let's go to the third one. Oh, here they should be like that. Let me change so and so. And then he finished all the paper. And actually, usually does it in the first day. And then, like he doesn't want to send it at like if you get a referee report, you have like 3 months, 4 months, and so forth. So we put it in the drawer. And then after 3-4 months, actually take it out and send it, just not to be too early about it. And NOGA invented most of us, probably not some of the distinguished guests here, but most of us struggle in writing papers. So we write one thing and other thing, and then we change the order, and we change the partition into theorems and lemmas, and then we change the constant, and we move things back and forth. And it takes like a month of going back and forth and changing everything. So NOGA invented what's called the one-pass method. So he's you talk with him, like in 6 hours, he has the full paper ready for you to read. So this is how we write so many papers. And also is pretty quiet in this conference, but if you have been in talks, in seminars, this was also mentioned before, that he actually asks a lot of questions, and sometimes he understands the paper better than the speaker, many times, and he actually improved the result online. And I had one student that he wanted to give, a master's student, he wanted to give us some talk about his results, and I sending for few people to come. And I told him, why don't you call, let's also invite NOGA. So he told me, no way. So I told him, why no way? So I thought that I heard stories that he's sitting in the audience and improve the result immediately, and I want to finish my master thesis, so I don't want him to be there. As you know, NOGA is also an excellent lecturer, and always in the top list of the lectures. And actually, one nice thing is I typically, at the end of the course, doesn't know the name of the students, but he actually, even if he has 100 students, pretty much know the name of every one of them at the end of the course. As already Avi mentioned, NOGA write a lot of recommendation letters, and so if you are below 60, and maybe if you're above 60 as well, so he certainly wrote a recommendation letter on you, because he has so many of them. So one last thing is that I found there are no funny stories about NOGA. This is because it's very solid, but there is nothing weak points. There is only one weak point. So in the last 30 years that I know NOGA, I found only one way to slow him down and that he will not be so prolific as always. And I'm going to tell it, NOGA, I'm sorry. So the way to do it is not let him eat lunch. If he doesn't eat lunch, then afternoon, it doesn't work so well. So the only way is to keep him starving. This is the only way that I found, especially if you want to give a talk afternoon, so you should do it. And the last item is that we all know this statement of Rainey about Erdos, that a mathematician is a device for turning coffee into theorems. This is very old. So we all know that NOGA is actually a counterexample. In the last 10 years, we have a counterexample to a counterexample. He drank one coffee, and actually it's documented. We have a picture of that. And I think that in 10 years, Nurit will probably tell us that in the morning he drinks 10 coffees and doesn't tell anyone. This is why he's so productive. But he claims that he doesn't drink any coffee. And one last thing is that you should from now on, we'll call the coffee break, should be called tea break, because NOGA doesn't drink coffee. So, okay, thank you.
Actually, maybe complete the story about coffee. So at some point, indeed, after some talk, we went for lunch with the speaker, and then we went to drink coffee, actually, in this very building here. And NOGA, out of politeness, joined us, and then he decided he wants to be adventurous, and indeed drank this cup of coffee, and with a straight face as usually. And later in the evening, we asked him how was it, and he reported that so far hasn't observed any unusual phenomenon, and the performance is as usual, to which actually Yossi remarked that there is some time to absorb it and some time to accumulate it, and only after some amortization period you should see the effect. So maybe we should expect for NOGA to be even more productive after the first 1,000th cup of coffee. Any more volunteers from the floor to say anything? Very good, so let's not embarrass NOGA anymore, so let's wish him all a happy birthday and many more productive end years. And let me thank all the speakers of this evening and all this conference, and now we can proceed to even more entertaining part, which is the reception, which is served just outside. Well, NOGA does want to say something. So maybe that cup of coffee did have some effect on him.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, I cannot compete with what we have seen. This was great. And I'm amazed and touched. Really, thank you all for coming. And I guess that although it's late, I think I do have here a captive audience, but still I'm not going to talk for more than a few minutes. Now, it's sometimes customary, although nobody did it today, to start such a speech by addressing the most distinguished people in the audience according to some prescribed order which is determined by some rigid set of complicated rules that I could never quite get. So I'm not going to do it. But one reason I'm not going to do it is that I really feel that each and every one of you is a distinguished person, and if had I done it, I would have had to address everyone personally, and this is not practical. So I'll not do it this. Now, there are recently very many birthday conferences and memorial conferences. This is related maybe to something Avi said. I decided that I like birthday conferences better, and it's a matter of taste. Another observation is that recently there are more and more birthday conferences to younger and younger people. I don't know if it says something about me or about the way the world is behaving, but it's an interesting question. Now, looking at the very impressive list of speakers here, I checked, and actually I've already been in birthday conferences of exactly half of them. And this reminds me of this old joke that probably many of you heard, that says that you should always go to funerals of your friends because otherwise they will not come to yours. So this is the way we implement it, but it is... Now, I knew for a long time, so I'm very happy to see that I think nearly all, maybe all my former and present PhD students are here. And I always knew that my students are much more talented than me. And just to see it, you have to glance at this amazing poster of the conference that was prepared by two, mostly by one of them. And again, as was already mentioned, there is one typo that was inserted in one of the formulas cleverly and deliberately, just to see that people are reading it carefully. And indeed, the responses showed that some people definitely did. Now, the organizers actually did an amazing job at advertising this conference. And probably you can see it just by looking around you. But I found out about it last week when I went to the barber shop to cut my hair. So usually I go to the same barber shop somewhere in Ramat Aviv, and they know me by name, but I don't think they know much more about me. And still, when I came last week, the owner told me as I entered that, congratulations, I hear that you are having a birthday conference. So I was asking, how comes you know? And she refused to disclose her sources, but she said that in barbershops they always know all the worthwhile information before anybody else. So I found it very impressive, anyway. Now, it is often the case in these conferences that you hear stories about yourself that are only loosely connected to the truth. Here today, actually, it was pretty good, but and I enjoyed hearing everything that was told. But I want to say that I will also enjoy hearing stories that are completely imaginable. So if you feel like inventing something in the rest of the week, just go ahead. Yeah, you are encouraged to do so. Now, on a more serious note, so I think that being a mathematician or a computer scientist has advantages and disadvantages like any other profession. And one huge advantage that we often don't think about is just the fact that we have in this job amazing colleagues. So they are talented, they are interesting, they are funny, and I'm really proud and delighted to belong to this community. And finally, let me thank all of you for coming, especially those who came from far away, and I know that some of you came from the Schreiber building, but some people came even from further away. Actually, there are people here from many countries, from 6 continents. The organizers didn't invite anybody from Antarctica, so but maybe. And I want, of course, to thank the organizers. So it's Yossi, Uri, and Benny, and especially Michael, and even more especially Asaf. So I think they really did an amazing job. And I want to thank Shira for doing most of the administrative work. I want, of course, to thank my family. I already said that my students are more talented than me, but I should say that my family members are even more talented than my students, and transitivity definitely works here. So this is... and of course, I want to thank the speakers. The quality of a conference is, to a large extent, determined by the quality of the speakers. And in this respect, this conference is truly unique. And I'm looking forward to being here in the remaining days. Thank you very much.